In the early hours of Wednesday morning, Israel declared it was launching Operation Summer Camps in the West Bank, the largest military assault on the occupied territory since the infamous Operation Defensive Shield in 2002, which ended up killing around 500 Palestinians. Despite the fact that this military assault has included the murder of innocent civilians, besieging of hospitals, blocking and targeting of ambulances, in addition to the destruction of electrical infrastructure and roads, it is being reported in Western corporate media as yet another preemptive security operation designed to go after Iran-backed militants and Hamas. The reality is, however, that the armed groups operating in the three primary areas Israel is targeting, that is Tubas, Tulkarem, and Jenin, rarely ever actually take the fight to Israel and almost exclusively work to fight Israeli forces when they invade their areas. Also, these are not the well-trained armed formations that existed during the Second Intifada, which received the support of the Palestinian Authority and had the weapons to confront Israeli occupation forces properly. These new armed groups in the West Bank are primarily comprised of fighters from the PIJ movement's Saraya al-Quds armed wing and Al-Aqsa Martyrs brigades, who are loosely aligned with Fatah, with only a small amount of cells existing that are associated with Hamas. Unlike in the early 2000s, these groups must also avoid the Palestinian Authority's attempts to destroy them, as the PA's security forces work to cut off their supplies, arrest their leaders, storm their homes, dismantle and seize their weaponry, even shooting some of them dead in the streets. These fighters are mostly between the ages of 18 to 25. They possess no more than semi-automatic weapons and locally made low-impact explosive charges, for the most part, making it nearly impossible to properly confront the power of the Israeli military. These groups are primarily concentrated in the northern West Bank and first began forming in May of 2021 out of a desperate situation in the occupied territory, where the Palestinian Authority was working with the Israeli military to ensure that there would be no resistance to Israel's ever more violent tactics aimed at usurping more Palestinian land. Since October 7, 2023, over 660 Palestinians have been murdered inside the West Bank, while the PA's security forces have worked to prevent demonstrations, clashes with the Israeli military, and armed resistance. So the Israeli military operation that they say is intended to target the northern West Bank and has already extended into a much broader campaign of raids throughout the occupied territory comes at a critical moment for the Israeli political elite. Also, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is refusing to sign a ceasefire deal with Hamas in Gaza and needs a distraction. He also needs a victory to show his supporters and political coalition who are fixated on the need to escalate tensions in the West Bank. The end goal here would be the declaration that Israel is annexing large swaths of the territory, which would be the final nail in the coffin of the so-called two-state solution, after the Knesset also passed a bill that prevents any unilateral Israeli recognition of a Palestinian state. Despite attempts in the corporate media to disconnect this assault on the West Bank from Israel's war in Gaza, it is certainly connected to a wider plan to try and destroy any hope of a political solution that will grant Palestinians their basic rights.